What if you could speak a business application into existence? I'm not talking about a simple automation or a basic if this then that recipe. I'm talking about a real business engine that understands your methodology, protects your brand, and executes your most complex workflows, all from a single voice note. In this series, we've explored the capture, structure, create framework. We've seen how to capture raw ideas, how to structure them into templates, and then how to create polished documents and presentations. But today, we're taking the final step. We're moving from manual tools to agentic workflows. So I'm going to show you how we built a custom event engine for the Bloom & Branch Event Design, a fictitious firm that crafts memorable experiences for high net worth individuals, and we did it by simply speaking our intent. Let's check it out. So you've seen these capabilities before. This is our organized workspace. It's a Bloom & Branch knowledge library we created to execute the workflows we're going to show you today. So there's several things that we put in here. One example is a document that spells out their various offerings from lowest tier to highest tier in terms of what that involves for customers, whether that's a wedding or a corporate event. We're going to see both of those today. And a few other pieces of information that they would use when populating documents and presentations. So it's a basic knowledge library. We can take this and make it very, very complicated. And then we've got templates in terms of documents and presentations that we're going to use for this workflow. But it's really going to start with the voice note. So here's the scenario that I want us to imagine. We just met with a couple of clients. We've met with a corporate client. We met with a couple that are going to have an event, a wedding event. And so what we want to do is actually, on our way home, capture these as voice notes and then kick off the workflow to create the proposals that we can then review when we get home. So let's just think about it from that perspective. So I'm going to go into my phone and I'm going to go into the new voice note portion. You'll see that I've already selected the workflow from the workflow drop-down menu. And I'm going to first record a note about the wedding. And this is for the Millers. So we'll just do that quickly here. Okay, so just a quick note. After the Miller wedding meeting, we just wrapped up. That's Sarah and Mark. They're going to have a wedding with like 150 guests. They're aiming for June. The vibe they're after, as I take it, is something like a vintage boho garden party. So like wildflowers everywhere, mismatched antique chairs, maybe lots of fairy lights. They really want the guests to think of it as like a hidden gem. So like very, very intimate, even with 150 people. And then they had a couple of pain points. Sarah was stressed out about her out-of-town families and then travel logistics. And then Mark was really concerned about the outdoor spaces if we get rain. Budget-wise, they're at $45,000. And I would definitely say this is a legacy client, especially with a travel concierge need for Sarah's family. So we want to make sure that's front and center of the proposal. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just stop recording my voice note, and I'm going to save and run this workflow. And what we can see is that the workflow is triggered and it's already beginning to execute. So, and it's going to come up with a plan and we're going to execute that plan. So while it's doing that, why don't we go ahead and record a second voice note for our other client. Okay, just got off the phone with Nexus Tech. They're planning their Innovate 2026 summit for October. It's a big corporate event, totally different from our usual weddings, but they love our nature organic look. They have $75K for florals and greenery. They want a massive futuristic stage installation so that it feels like a living forest. They want, I think they'd love metallic accents. They also need about 20 centerpieces for the breakout rooms and then some high-end greenery for the VIP lounge. I would say the vibe here is professional, cutting edge, but still grounded in kind of a natural atmosphere. And they're expecting about 500 attendees. So we need to show them how we can scale our signature style for a corporate environment. And we'll go ahead and run that workflow as well. So from here, we can go to the Bloom & Branch workflow, which is part of its collection. And we can see it as the workflow has been running. It's captured these voice notes and it's updated the client registry. with the two client notes and high-level summary information. And then as the workflow has been running, it's created proposals for each of the clients. So if we look at, for example, the Miller wedding, we can see that it's created first a document, which is based on a template for Bloom & Branch's company in terms of what information they typically provide. And you can see that it's providing, as usual, notes to the underlying information, in this case, the voice notes that we used and the summaries that were created. And it's created a proposal based on the corporate information, the types of events they plan, and the client's needs. Probably more interesting visually will be the presentation that was created for Sarah and Mark, again, based on the voice note and the aesthetic that they were looking for. So here are the fairy lights, the chairs that we described in the voice note, and kind of a vision for what this wedding would look like. And as usual, and we'll provide a link to these earlier videos, you can edit the presentations and we can show you how to do that as well in more detail. So let's similarly go into the second proposal. And in this case, we'll look at Nexus Tech for a different kind of event. This is for their corporate event. And we talked about that living forest experience that they were looking for. And here are the results of what it pulled into the presentation. So again, it's using the client kind of requirements, the organizational data on the kinds of events that they put together and the pricing tiers, and put together these proposals in a seamless way. So how did I create this workflow in structured notes? Again, it's using all of the capabilities from capturing from a voice note, structuring using templates, and then moving to the creation of presentations and documents. And then it's establishing a workflow to handle all of this. Well, we talked about the agent in a previous video in terms of how it can organize your workspace. And so you can see that that's still an option here. But to create this workflow, all I did was create the underlying artifacts in the collection that we described, and then said something like the following. I want to build an engine for Bloom & Branch. So look at that collection of notes around the corporate structure. It should take a voice note from a customer meeting, use the knowledge library, and then generate a document proposal first, and then based on that document proposal, build a presentation deck. So once it's considered the request, it then created this proposed plan to create the workflow. It has a series of actions that it undertakes, actions that we've explained in previous videos. It creates collections, it's going to create notes, it's going to create documents and templates, and it's going to create the workflow itself. And then you can just hit approve and it will create the workflow that you saw today. So this is how we see the future of work. You're no longer the doer, you're the director of the work. You've seen how we capture, how we structure, and then how we create. But agentic workflows are what connect those islands of capability into a coherent whole of productivity. So if you want to stop organizing your notes and start speaking your business into existence, make sure to subscribe to this channel. We're opening up beta testing for the Structured Notes app very soon, so you can find the sign up link in the description below. And if you want to see exactly how we built those stunning visual decks you saw today, click on the video on your screen right now. It's a deep dive into effortless presentations, and it shows you how to master the create phase of the framework. Okay, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.